Well, I Remember is the story of a young Irish woman, Barbara, and in a way it's a rite of passage. It's a story of a young girl who leaves Ireland at the age of 18 and tries to forget about some very sad events in her childhood and goes to work as an au-pair in London with an English family and a French mother. And she ends up in the south of France with the family in the holiday. But strange things start to happen, and she begins to suspect that all is not right in this family, but she's completely on her own. So the book is very much a story of being displaced and on your own when you're that young and you're not confident, and how you actually deal with this crisis. But also the idea behind the book is there's a quote at the beginning of the book by Freud, and it's saying the only way to forget is to remember. And this is the idea behind the whole book, that even though Barbara has tried to leave her past behind, it starts to resurface in France, and the only way she can leave her past behind is by revisiting it.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the family Barbara is coming to as an au-pair.
Yes, the very traditional father, English father. He works in the city in London, and he's married to this very beautiful but quite a difficult French woman, very chic, very sophisticated. And Barbara is this young Irish girl. It's set in 1981, so she's coming over from Ireland. She's not dressed very well, she feels very clumsy and not at ease. Olivia doesn't make her feel at ease, and then they have one child, Matilda, who's really rather horrible little girl, very spoilt and very precocious, and at first Barbara doesn't like her, but then she begins to feel closer and closer to her, and there's something about this little girl that reminds her of her little brother who died when she was a child, and she feels very drawn to this child, and through this child she starts to go back to her past as well. The little girl is very sickly, and no one will tell Barbara why she's sick, and she can't understand what is actually wrong with the child, and she begins to suspect that actually somebody might be making Matilda sick on purpose. But Barbara doesn't know who will believe her. She can't really speak much French, and she doesn't know who to trust, so she's completely on her own in this very eerie landscape. It's set in the Camargue in the south of France, which is this area of flat salt marshes, very barren landscape, and full of symbolism as well, the symbolism of the Black Virgin cult and gypsy culture. So she's in a completely foreign environment. So what does she do? What does she decide to do? I better not tell you too much.
Did the landscape inspire you somehow to the book?
Yes, for me, in my novels, landscape is very, very important. The landscape is almost like a character in all of my books, and for my novels I get many of my ideas of what will happen in the story from actually being in a landscape and how it makes me feel, and how I imagine characters responding to it, because the Camargue in this instance in the south of France is this very, very, as I say, eerie, barren, hot, arid place, and Barbara comes from the west of Ireland, which is completely the opposite, and it's mountains, it's wet, it's lush. It's like she comes from high up in the sky to this flat, low land, and it makes her feel very oppressed. So the landscape is an emotional barometer for the characters, and it's specifically to contrast with when we go back to her childhood and her present as an older woman in the west of Ireland, near Sligo, which is a very beautiful part of the world.
You said once in an interview you loved sad tales. Why is that?
I do, yes.
And is your book a sad tale?
It is, but always for me, well, I think what I'm interested in when I write my books is the idea of families, sadness within families, and a lot of it coming from secrets or hiding the truth or not communicating to each other, and how this can lead to sadness and loss. So I am interested in exploring this side of the human condition, but also always in my books there's hope, and I'm interested in the healing nature of reading through these sad tales, that I don't leave people in a very dark place. I always bring them somewhere. There's always hope at the end of the book. Not a Hollywood ending, but there's definitely hope. But that's life, you know? That is life. And we do have to deal with things like loss. And a lot of my books centre on relationships with parents. And this is what so crucially forms who we are. And we might love our parents, but that doesn't mean they're perfect. And the relationships between mother and daughter, or father and daughter, really interests me.